curved shoulders and swivelled his office chair, displaying the profile that drew comparisons with Napoleon, along with the sweep of hair that fell across his brow. Ben waited for the usual speech about the importance of the station running smoothly in his father's absence. The unstated message was clear. Ben was to heed the station's manager, Mr. Todd, in all things. Mr. Todd was, after all, the finest manager west of the Divide. And didn't the man know it? Riding about with his superior air, it was not unusual for Mr. Todd to ignore Ben as if he were merely another worker, and a barely useful one at that. "And keep that young wife of yours out of mischief. It's one thing for her to have visitors, but I'm not partial to her gallivanting about the countryside and leaving my grandson alone in the care of the Aboriginal domestics. People come to us. It's what's expected. Rachel isn't in the city anymore. We have a hierarchy out here for good reason." Alfred squinted at Ben's necktie. "Purple? Dalhuntys don't wear purple." Ben considered the colour rather chirpy. It lifted the drab cloth of the suits he wore, and Rachel agreed it complemented his tanned skin. "I thought—" "Well, don't think, son. It doesn't suit you. We have a valet for that," decreed his father. At last count, the homestead staff consisted of 4 housemaids, a cook and her assistant, the valet, 2 washerwomen, a boy to chop wood, and Mrs. Wilson, head of the household and all matters domestic, who also doubled as a lady's maid for Ben's wife. A man was likely to trip over one of the many people running about the place, and that was before he took a step beyond the gate, where the business of making money supplanted everything else. To keep the cogs of pastoralism oiled, it was necessary to employ a village of 80, comprised of stockmen, blacksmiths, farm workers, carpenters, contractors, and general labourers. There were so many people, Ben was at a loss as to why his father felt it necessary to spend 3 months in Sydney every year when station life could be just as noisy as the city. At times, with numerous men riding about the place and steamboat whistles continually screeching when the river ran, it was all Ben could do not to retreat to his bedroom and place a pillow over his head. Ben was reluctant to interrupt his father, who was now collating papers for planned business meetings in Sydney, but quietly he reminded him that the wool broker was still outside, here to tout for their business, and the heat was punishing. Alfred clacked his dentures in irritation. He was fond of the teeth left him by his father. Waterloo teeth, he called them, a grisly reminder of their battlefield provenance, although to Ben the inclusion of hippopotamus ivory was far more reminiscent of fashionable Piccadilly than the Waterloo killing field. Alfred liked to believe that the scavenged teeth belonged to one of Wellington's ex-Hanoverian sabre-wielding soldiers. The essence of a dead warrior was deemed an advantage when their pastoral existence was hard won. There was a certain combative element to their lives. Mrs. Wilson entered, following a single knock on the door. She greeted her long-time employer with a curt hello, and with the briefest acknowledgement to Ben, sat a silver tea tray on the desk. She straightened her 5'5" frame, deftly avoiding the low-hanging candelabrum, and poured a single cup. Once the task was completed, she ensured the solid silver teapot, sugar bowl, and creamer were perfectly positioned to display the D insignia etched on each piece. Alfred proceeded to give the housekeeper final instructions. The Aboriginal women and girls working in the house were to be treated firmly, but not harshly. Managing them appropriately was a civic duty if they were to assimilate into society, and the use of any language other than English was not to be tolerated. The head gardener was to pay careful attention to the watering of the orchard, marmalade and homemade cordial being particular favourites of Alfred's. And the bird netting protecting the orange koi in the pond, purchased at great cost from Victoria, was to be checked thrice daily. Mrs. Wilson was dismissed, and with 3 neat steps backwards, as if departing royalty, she eventually left the room. Were it not for Mrs. Wilson, Ben would have dispensed with the household domestics entirely during his father's absence, and spent languorous hours with his wife and baby son, dozing on a blanket next to the man-made pond. Being left in charge, as Alfred termed it, meant little. His power was restricted to riding about the run and tipping his hat in greeting to Mr. Todd. Not that Ben had the slightest idea what he might order the staff to do, even if they were willing to listen to him. Frankly, he preferred...